welcome to actually the gaming and stuff podcast thing, whatever I decide to call this at the end. Uh, so basically, this is just gonna be me and my friend Aiden talking about gaming and stuff. So there's no real set subject. We're just gonna kind of talk about whatever for like 30 minutes, and then just kind of see where it goes.
You
So
realize that's essentially the definition of a podcast, right?
a little bit, a little
Just
bit.
just just talking about something. That's
Talking
basically
about
what it is.
it might be. Who knows? Anyway, so yeah, I guess we'll start it off with the games. So, but I know what games we've been playing recently. So those two games are Escape from Tarkov and Rainbow Six of the Sieging. So like, I am dog at Tarkov. So what is your?
Siege is honestly a terrible game.
I mean, it's a terrible game. It's a great game.
It's horrible. It's so bad.
You just gotta be poggers to play it, right?
They just always add some very odd expansion that doesn't seem to need to be there and doesn't seem to have a purpose, and they change something that's been in the game for a while that people are used to for no obvious reason. It just doesn't make sense.
I mean, kinda. Like, I think they need to add DLC to at least a point where like the game kind of stays interesting. Like, honestly, I hate the map reworks they do. Like, personal pet peeve of mine is like the weird map reworks that they do for like no other reason than I guess just to do the map reworks. Where it's like if they didn't do those map reworks, the game would just be perfectly fine.
It's to hopefully keep, drag in, or bring back players that used to play the game. They're changing the content to hopefully either adhere like bring in newer players, keep the current players so they aren't bored, or bring back other players that got bored of the game. They're just trying to get more players, basically.
I mean, yeah, but like if they want to keep that same fan base, they should probably not like. I guess like make the game arguably worse. Like, okay, I can understand to a standpoint where you want to keep like not constantly changing the game, but like changing it just enough so that people stay interested. But like from my point of view, I'd rather the game kind of stay the same and it like just be a consistent game overall than them kind of change it every 3 weeks.
Hmm.
Because I feel
I
like
don't play Siege enough to really care all that much.
yeah, but yeah, I mean like that's strictly though from like a competitive like kind of standpoint where it's like that matters. Where it's like when they release a map every 2 days or they rework a map, you got to relearn that entire map's area. You got to relearn all the spots because, like, an example, the newest map rework with Border, they basically changed Border from what it was, and like they added 3, 4, 5 new sections. Not five, but I know they added one big one, which was second floor. Usually there was just this long open gap and you would just have to be able to deal with it. So it was, if you played Siege, you know what wall I'm talking about on Border. So like basically my route was you go in from Valley, you go inside that right door, and then you push to the left, and you go in and you just play because you're safe on that left side. That left side's basically untouchable, where you are, right? But with this new rework, you're basically saying even though attacking Border is already hard, let's make it harder to make it harder. We're now, okay, say my usual thing to do is that I play IQ. So
Hmm.
basically, go in. So I'll go in either, so if they're playing second floor, it works the best, but that's only if they're playing second floor. So basically, I go in through CCTV. I take main wall, I take CCTV. So usually I blow out one wall, which is that divider. I blow out the wall that's to the right of that, and then the wall that's in front of that wall, because that gives me open sight lines through the hallway, so they can't wrap. And I also have open sight lines if I use my other breach charge, if it's already open, into the other site. So it's only two sight lines that I realistically have to watch unless someone's with me, which is perfectly manageable. But when they add, I think, another doorway, and I think one of those walls is still destructible. you're setting yourself up for failure because that's not even a viable push anymore. I mean, that's one of the easier. That's like one of the best ways to be able to push because you can get yourself sightlines. So they're making the game like it feels like they're making the game harder for people who care enough to put the time and effort in to get over that learning curve of the game initially. Like when you started playing Siege, you probably felt like that learning curve where like you just get murked every like
I
24/7.
I honestly didn't feel much of a learning curve.
Really?
It's just another PvP game. It's like Tarkov has a learning curve. It's hard. It's not an easy game at
Oh
all.
no,
But
it's not.
Siege is just another. It's just another PvP game. It's like more tactical COD, except it's not tactical. It's just whoever pushes faster wins, basically.
Eh.
It's all aim. It's all
Yeah.
in your aim
Yes.
and how fast you can play. That's all it is.
I mean that's probably you though. Like in my opinion, like when I started playing the game, at least for PC, like switching from console, I was already at an advantage because like it's just not that different. It's like I feel like there's a big difference between playing regular Siege and then playing casual Siege. Because I feel like casual Siege is like you just kind of do whatever the heck you want and then you're fine, right? No, and then there's competitive Siege, which is basically like if you don't know what you're doing to at least an extent, you're gonna get murked by whoever's like knows what they're doing what better than you. Like it's it, and then like adding all this new shit in just kind of just pushes that over because no matter how good you are at the game, aim and reaction wise, if someone knows the map better than you know the map, they're probably gonna kill you.
I suppose
Because
that's true.
yeah, because it's such a weird game where like knowing map knowledge rules, right? Like a good example I guess would be like CS or Valorant. Where like in my personal opinion, I feel like that game's 100% reaction time and 100% aim control, recoil control. Sorry.
Well, your starting aim matters a lot more on CS than it does on most games.
Your start
Because, like if you hit that first headshot, they're gonna die.
exactly.
And the recoil patterns in CS, you have to learn them, and I don't really play CS, so I can't really speak to how hard they are, but I don't think they're easy to learn.
Yeah, there. I mean, I learned the AK pattern because that's what I used, mostly. But other than that, yeah, the patterns are super hard to learn in the game. But that's also if, uh, how do I phrase this? So like that's also if you're strictly not hitting headshots, right? So like, okay, so example, if I just use an AK, which is a one-shot headshot guaranteed, and I was just like, okay, whatever, I'll just hit headshots and just go along with that. I understand. I don't understand why people even try to learn the recoil control on most of those guns in CS, because M1A1S doesn't really have a recoil pattern. Because if you kind of like pull down and a little bit to the left, that's basically its recoil pattern. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's just kind of the gist of it, right? Other than
Mm.
that, like, when you realistically think about it, and this is just my opinion and purely my opinion. I don't know if anyone else anyone would have the same, but in my opinion only, I think that the best way to play CS:GO is be confident in your first shot, and if you're going to spray with an AK, make sure it's not a far battle. A far gun fight. Like, okay, example would be like, do you know the layout of Dust 2?
No, when I say I don't play CS, I mean I don't play CS.
Like at all?
No, like not at all. I think I probably have like 5 hours in that game max. Not even.
Okay, I have like 300 and something. So, okay, so Dust 2 is kind of laid out. I can just actually send you a picture really quick. Basically the best way to like explain this, right, is so when you're playing Dust 2, here's actually a good image for you, because it's like pretty good. Actually this one's a bit better, because it explains it. Okay, here, I'll show you this image. And then I'll probably put it up on the podcast too. So basically, if you click on that image, oh god, that's bad. Okay, so you see that left site, B site. If you open that image and look at the left
Yeah.
side of the map, top left, where that B thing is.
I would if it wasn't tiny. It is
Oh,
like the
yeah,
smallest.
I know. That's gonna be that's beside the point. Okay, so that B site. So basically, what I would do if I play this map, so CTs don't have AKs, right? So basically, what I'd do is I'd either buy M1A1S or USPS and just go full armor. So basically, I'd rotate through CT mid, and then if you go through that like entrance, there's also a crouch jump on that top like area. There's like a little window you can crouch up in. So if you see that top left right that says B lat, so there's two little boxes there, and then you could see straight down that sight line through the tunnel and then through to the stairs. So basically, in the good scenario, you play CT, you win a round, you get an AK. The best way to hold this specific area with AK is just to place your shots, like try to get headshots as much as possible. But if you really have to, I'd say push to like the wall, that like the longer wall that goes into like the dip, and then play the wall. And as soon as they push, the AK's spray is pretty good up. Super like up close, the AK spray is pretty good. Like there's a really high chance it hits headshots, so you can just spray them. But other than that, playing long range is definitely the best way to use the AK, and that's just my opinion. I do not think that the AK is really. I personally don't think it's like a really mid range gun. I think it's either long or short, and there's really no in between. But then again, that's just a strictly personal opinion because of how the gun feels in general. Anyways, back to something. We'll kind of stray from that topic a little bit, and we'll move on to something else, like Tarkov. Tarkov is a game that's personally new to me. But Aiden, how many hours do you think you have in it?
Oh, hold on. My gun just went click.
Your what?
Yeah. I forgot how bad the bots are in offline mode on Tarkov, to be honest.
Yeah.
My gun went click. I think I probably have 1,000 hours in Tarkov at least. I mean, I've had it a year, so.
Okay, so.
Oh, this was Glukar? Oh, I see. That makes sense, I suppose.
Okay, so, without getting into it deep, unless you really want to, basically Tarkov is, if you've ever played Rust, it's basically Rust, but a lot more detailed and complicated, and you don't really build. It's just kind of like.
Oh, you don't build at all?
Yeah.
Tarkov is like Rust, except it's not like Rust at all.
Yeah, but like Rust is the only game that's like somewhat comparable to.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of other tactical, like, quote unquote tactical military shooters, like Squad and stuff like that are very similar to Tarkov, but also very different.
Yeah, Arma. It doesn't
Arma 3, yeah. Arma 3 is a lot like Squad, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Arma 3. But anyways, so it's a much more like meticulous game than you really think, and that's that's like literally scratching the top of like that's just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah,
because
pretty
it's
much.
because it's not just like gear that matters. It's literally down to bullets that matter.
It's guns and bullets and armor and suppressors and what site you use and where you are and what map you're playing. It's like everything
plays into it. And it's also like if you don't know what the hell you're doing, like I do most of the time,
you're gonna get bopped. You're gonna get absolutely slapped around by the AI. You'll get slapped around by low tier players.
Yeah.
Because in Tarkov, your aim matters a lot, but there's face shields, which can make it so your aim doesn't matter at all if you're not using good bullets.
Yeah. So it's a game that's I kind of want to compare it to like it's a two-way street, right? It's either everything matters, exactly what you do, or nothing matters at all, and what you do is relevant.
Well, I'd say in a good 50% of my deaths in Tarkov, there's nothing I can do about it. It's just a lot of the time it's just okay, so Tarkov's netcode is really bad. Like if you think about peaking on CS and it being really balanced and fair for people, Tarkov's like the exact opposite of that. It's not balanced, it's not fair, and it is cruel. Like it is not fun. it's hard to explain.
Yeah, I mean, then again, I do feel like CS is in general like okay, CS and Siege, in my opinion, their fucking peaking system's terrible because like, and Fortnite to that matter, because all that's ping based.
True. Well, Tarkov has a lot to do with ping as well. Well,
Yeah,
not well, yes and no, because Tarkov, what the issue with ping that you get isn't if your ping is high, it's if your ping is spiking up and down. If your ping is up and down and you lose a fight, you're either bad or standing still. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just the facts. Because you are going to be jumping around on their screen. You are not going to be walking in a straight line. You're not going to be running around right. And when you peek a corner, they probably won't even see you before you've killed them if you have decent reaction time, decent aim. Like, if you're even players and your ping is spiking and theirs isn't, you're probably going to beat them.
yeah,
I'd
exactly.
say 9 out of 10 times. And that 10th time is pure luck. Or a grenade, because grenades are kind of OP in Tarkov.
I have personal experience with the grenades in that game.
They're very fun.
Eh,
You can you can blow yourself up with them pretty easily.
yeah,
If you
you
don't know
just
what you're doing, suffice to
if
say,
you
Mo does not know what he's doing and blew himself up.
yeah um yeah, so accidentally did that. So, anyways, uh, so I guess kind of besides that, it's also super depending. I would say dependent on who like you play with. Um, because personally, I think I'd do fine if I didn't play with anyone. I think if I just played by myself, I'd do right? But if I play with you, for example,
Hmm.
that just makes the game more fun. To be honest, I think it's just more fun in general, right? But then again, for me, that's basically what it comes down to. Because if I had to choose between, you know, just playing the game and just kind of getting bored after like 45 minutes, and me being able to play for 4 hours straight with you and whoever's in that server at the time, I'd rather
Hmm.
choose just playing with you. Like, I wouldn't even care if I died, to be honest with you. I don't care how many kits I lose, if I'm being completely honest with you. Because I know that if I really need the money and I really need to get the stuff back, I can just hunker down for 2 hours or whatever. Um, you know what I mean? Like, I can just hunker down and get it done with you or whatever. Like, just go on scav runs and get money if
Hmm.
that's really what has to happen, right?
One thing that I've never understood in Tarkov, well, not never, but recently I've realized how dumb it is, and it's hatchet running. Like, even if you're low level, it doesn't matter. There's no reason to hatchet run anymore, because you can just go on a scav, spawn in with one item, run straight to exit, sell that item, and you will have enough money to go in with a kit, or you can just take your scav's gear back in. And it's just so confusing to me at this point why people even bother to hatchet run anymore unless they're going to get graphics cards, which isn't going to make sense to most people, but it's just kind of how it is at this point.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that if you're a new player, I'll use myself as an example. If you're a new player and you that stuff happens to dude, you're just gonna not like the game. You're just gonna. I'm being honest when I say this. You're just gonna not like the game at all. You're gonna think that the game is just bad. You're gonna think that the game is just toxic. It's bad. It's not fun, and you're just gonna stop playing. And it's like,
Tarkov really isn't fun at the start. It never. I don't think it ever will be fun at the start for people because it's too challenge. I don't want to say it's too challenging because it's not like impossible to be good at the start. It's just it's a big hill. It's a
yeah,
really big
it's a
hill.
fucking wall. To be honest with you.
I remember when I first started playing the game, I I didn't know anything about the game, right? Because, I just started playing it. But like I didn't even know that like how the quests worked or anything. And I just played the game. I just had fun. Like I didn't care. The game is I don't know. It's a lot more fun if you don't care. Like if you're not having, if you're not getting super upset every time you die, the game is going to be a lot more fun than if you decide that you need to get super upset over every single death.
Exactly. Then again, that's how I play the game though. Like I just don't care.
Because you lose items when you die, and it doesn't feel good to lose items. But hatchet running,
Not
I
fun.
just don't I don't get it. I just
Not
don't
fun.
understand anymore. It's just pointless.
You could be like our
There's no
friend.
reason to do it.
Yeah, you can be like our friend who I could probably get on the podcast. He,
You would not want him. He's an absolute grimble.
yeah, okay. Should we explain to them this joke?
Sure, I guess.
Okay, so basically, this whole joke started when about what is it, like 3 weeks ago? Maybe
I don't
something like
know,
that.
probably a 3.
Yeah, so 3 weeks ago, me and him were in a siege match, and there was this dude with like the most deep Southern accent you could probably think of, like really deep, right? He was cussing me out. He was probably drunk, right? So we were playing siege. He was cussing me out, and he was just making incoherent sentences to get me mad, I guess. So every time I would respond, I would just mimic his accent and just he'd make him super mad. So then you said, "Dude, his name is probably Grimble," and I probably laughed for like 30 minutes after that, just uncontrollably, because I couldn't stop laughing. Because it's so funny, because it's so true, dude. He sounded like his name was Grimble. So like whenever we refer to anyone who's just like bad, I guess it's just Grimble. So
Just it's basically just become goblin.
yeah, that's like our special phrase for goblin, because we're too cool for that word, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I'd say that, yeah, that's definitely it.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyways,
Can you-
like Tarkov. Anyways, but like, okay, like I think the wall, the curve, the whatever, dude. It's like fine to a point.
trying to think of the most recent thing in Tarkov, because you said earlier it was like it's like Siege making the game hard just to make it hard. And there's something, and I can't remember what it was anymore, that I remember Tarkov doing. And I was just like, this doesn't make sense. There was no reason for this update, and you did it anyway. And it was clearly just to make the game harder.
For
And it
Tarkov,
wasn't the heavy bleed. Yeah, it wasn't the heavy bleed because I had originally thought heavy bleed would be like that, but then I realized later on that it was a needed system.
yeah,
Like
because
it,
it
it
makes
makes the
sense.
game more balanced and fair and
It's
makes
and
the PvP more exciting when you actually get normal PvP and not just you get tapped in the head by a hacker or somebody speeding around a corner because they're desynced out the wazoo.
exactly. So it's like it makes sense, but like you if you think of that update again, we can circle back to it. But anyways, yeah, like I feel like to some point, I don't like it when games make a game hard for just the sake of making it hard. You know, like I think if you're gonna make your game challenging, do it, but make it balanced.
Hmm.
Like I'd rather play a game that's just like boofed out of mind. Like you know what I mean? Like I'd rather play like if I can name one game that like I think is consistently good on a basis of like pure being fair almost all the time, I'd have to say it's Overwatch. To be completely honest with you.
I haven't really played much Overwatch.
Yeah.
Whenever I play Overwatch, I don't take it seriously at all. Like I say I don't take Siege seriously, but I at least vaguely try in Siege. But
Oh
in
yeah.
Overwatch, I just play Mercy and just run around behind people trying to pistol whip them.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's like that's what I mean. It's like it's a fun game, right? But it's like Siege. Uh, so to be honest with you, be quite frank, obviously, Overwatch has two sides to the community, right? And I'm a part of kind of both, right? There's the competitive try hard, sweat 24/7, just get good at the game, right? And then there's the chill side. And the chill side is more of like it's not they don't try because they don't care, it's because they care enough they don't care. Right? We're like they're not going to complain about the game because it's just fine. It's just a game to an extent where it's just like it's good.
I remember what it was that the okay, so in Tarkov there's a weight system, right? And if you pick up people's gear or you pick up their guns or you pick up their ammo or their mags or anything, if you pick up anything off a person, you get heavier. When you shoot a bullet out of your gun, you'll get a little lighter. And it's like dynamic that way. And I remember what it was, and it's that they in the most recent wipe of Tarkov, they lowered the max. Okay, so the starting max weight before you get overweight, which will slow you down and make it so you can't gain stamina while walking, you don't have to crawl around a bunch, was originally 45, and they lowered it to 35, and there was no reason. There was literally no explanation, no good reason for it. It was one of those updates where you just kind of look at it and you're like, this is clearly just to make the game harder. There was no good reason for this. And it's so confusing when people do that because it's just pushing people away from a game that you want them to, like.
Enjoy. Yeah.
Because you never want people to not like your game.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like that system just doesn't make sense to me, and like, okay, I get it. Like at some point you gotta like draw a line, but at the same time, it's like, I think the weight system at that to that point is just kind of dumb. Where like,
The original weight system was actually fine. Like it was pretty balanced. Like even new players could get out with gear, but now if you take in any sort of decent gear, if you don't have like high level strength skill, you won't be able to carry anything out of the raid without like shooting yourself full of stimulants so you can run around still or even just walk around still. And
yeah,
it's just so stupid that they changed it.
and it
Just
makes it
did not make sense.
and it makes it like 3 times more of a pain to be a new player. Because
Hmm.
like me, I'm what level 12, 13, and my skills are
Something
barely.
like that.
I'm not my skills aren't even anywhere close to what they should be. Like could be actually, and it's a struggle because I can't carry a lot of gear. In the first place, I can't carry a lot of gear because my strength thing is terrible. My stamina's bad, and it's not helpful because the game, to some point, I guess the creators when they just make it hard because they felt like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the COO. I don't know. He's either the CEO or COO of Battlestate Games, which is who made the game. Nikita. He said on one of their podcasts, he said this, and it's so true to Tarkov. It's just kind of upsetting, honestly. He said the game's not supposed to be fun, which it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why is it not supposed to be fun? Isn't the express purpose of a game to be
Did he
fun?
seriously say that?
Yeah, he said that. He said Tarkov is not supposed to be fun.
Wow.
It is supposed to be, hard and challenging and grueling. And I guess, like, to a certain extent, you want the hardcore aspect in a tactical shooter game that honestly isn't even tactical at this point with how many people have joined the game. But it just doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't make sense. They added, not too recently, but a little bit ago, they added, probably, I said arguably the most broken weapon in the game, the GL40, because it has these, it's a grenade launcher, obviously. It has
Oh, that
these
thing.
grenade shells that go in it that arm at 2 to 3 meters, which means you can shoot that thing basically point blank and it just insta kills the guy you're shooting it at. It
Nice.
can insta kill a whole squad, which is 5 people, theoretically, if they're standing close enough together with one shot. And I think the grenade launcher's like maybe 600K. The one shell for it would be like 40, and it essentially gives you a kill.
Ah.
Oh, and armor doesn't matter. Like they could be wearing anything. They could be wearing the most, yeah. They could be wearing the nicest gear in the game or like the most crappy scav tier gear in the game,
Eh,
and they're still gonna drop.
oh,
It doesn't matter.
oh crap. Sorry. Do explain to them like the scabs and stuff real quick. I'm gonna grab a bottle of water. Just kind of go into like not into detail enough, but
Hmm.
just like a base layer.
I gotta think how to describe scavs. Okay, so there's scavs, there's scab bosses, and then there's raiders. The scab bosses range from one which has like I think like 4 brain cells to one that has like 2 million IQ guards because there's the boss and then some of them have guards, some of them don't. They range from I think it's 2 to 6 guards plus the boss, which would mean there's one that's just by himself, and then there's two two Sturman and Sanitar who have 2 guards each. Then there's Rashala who has 4 and Gluhar who has 6. And I'd say Gluhar's guards are probably the most broken out of all of them. They will dolphin dive insta kill you. Pretty fun. And then there's scavs, and the scav AI is probably the most anger inducing. I can't think of the right word. They just they're just perfect. They're perfectly designed to piss people off because they either don't know how to do anything. They can't shoot their gun. They can't aim at you. They don't hit a single shot, or they turn around and shotgun you in the mouth and you just fall over and there's nothing you can do about it. And then there's the raiders, which are like the scavs. If they, I don't know, found steroids and, used them.
Okay.
And the scavs always have like bad gear. Like sometimes they'll have decent armors, but they never have like top tier armor. They don't have good guns. They don't have any good helmets, really. They don't have anything crazy, but this can be just brutal. They can be so brutal to fight.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Sorry, I'm back. Anyways, like I completely agree because for me at least, I'm still new to that game. I could be level 10 and it doesn't really matter because like at this, I don't take that game seriously enough. Like you have seen me play. I don't I don't take that game seriously.
Yeah, you're too busy buying PP-19s when you already have 10 guns in your stash to take the game seriously.
Yeah. Context for that. So I'll explain this, and then you can kind of correct it. Basically, so that this game, so you can buy guns, and like a PP-19 is what, like 50K, something like that.
Not even like I'd say 15.
Yeah.
Like
So they're
1.5.
cheap, right?
Yeah, they're not expensive.
So basically, what you're supposed to do is not buy that gun, but you'll buy a gun, and then you can go. I think you have to have flea market unlocked.
No, you can buy guns from just the vendors as well.
No,
They're
no, no,
just you can't buy any gun that you want if you're buying from the vendor, that's all.
no. I'm talking about like the customization stuff.
The customization wise, you can still buy like you could still customize guns before you have the flea market, just not nearly as much, and most of the items you're gonna need to find in a game.
Correct. Anyways, besides that, so like we can go into that flea market aspect if we really want to. We have time. We have a lot of time actually. Anyways, so basically, to that extent, with the ability to customize a gun, right? So like basically, you can make the gun as good as you want and as crappy as you want in the same exact area.
I wish there was some way that I could like show like even just one gun. Like the weapon preset system it's so I guess the best word for it is diverse, right? Like
Yeah.
you could put freaking orange handguard on the gun and have a 3-inch long barrel and have it have a million recoil like it's an AK from Rust, or you can have a 20-inch long barrel with a meta suppressor, a meta stock, a meta upper receiver, and just have it have no recoil like you're playing Call of Duty
Exactly.
in
Right.
a supposedly tactical game.
Yeah. So I mean, personally, the way I use that system, and that's pretty blatant. Is I use that shit for the memes. Right? Like, I basically build a gun that isn't meant to be used. No one should use it, and I use it, and I sometimes don't die.
And I sometimes don't die.
Correct, right?
I guess that's pretty fair, to be honest.
But, sometimes I do, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. And it's just part of the game, like, to me, at least. Where it's just like, if you die, you die, I guess. Like, nothing to get mad over. Really.
I feel like, I just sent you an image. I feel like that best describes the weapon modding system in Tarkov with a picture.
Where?
Once it actually decides to load.
Yeah, I can just... Oh! Yeah! Yeah.
That best describes it with a picture.
Oh, yeah, but then again, I can just clip this into the stream. I mean, to the podcast.
True.
So, yeah, I'll definitely put that in there. And that Dust 2 segment. Anyways, so yeah. Tarkov's a really diverse game in that way, where it's like, you just kind of like, I guess, like, just be yourself, like, in that kind of aspect, where it's like, just build a gun you feel comfortable with. Like, that's basically what it comes down to. Like, if you're comfortable with it, I think it's fine. Like, at least for me, in my opinion, like, I think I just use the guns because I think it's funny. Like, that sounds bad from, like, a good person who's, like, very experienced in the game perspective. But from my perspective, if it's fun, I'm gonna use it, I guess. Like, I don't really care.
I guess like I don't mind if you want to use, whatever gun, you enjoy or whatever. But I just something about people who are unwilling to take in weapons and gear just really grinds my gears. It's just like it's the perfect storm to make me annoyed because, you gotta use your expensive ammo on some dude who's not even willing to take in more than a hatchet that can't get taken off his corpse because he needs to top up his 30 million rubles to 31 for some reason. And it's
Yeah,
just like, why? Just why?
I'm not gonna
Why are
call it.
you even playing the game if you're not gonna actually play the game?
I'm not gonna call it our friend to be mean. I'm just gonna say it because it's true. So we have a friend who's on our Tarkov server, and he's on our other server as well. Um, so this guy has a freaking crap ton of loot, like unreasonable amount,
I think
honestly.
he cleaned up his stash a little. I mean, it's still unreasonable. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's straightened up a little bit.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, so this kid has like what 90 mil ruble, 100 mil probably.
Probably at least.
Okay, so put this in perspective: 100 million ruble. So it's except from Tarkov, it's a set in Russia, so it's based off a ruble system. So 100 million rubles in that game, basically you can buy whatever you want.
Oh, no, you can literally buy whatever
Yeah,
you want.
exactly.
Any item in the game, you can buy at least two of them, basically.
Yeah.
Because the most expensive item in the game, the red key card, are going for about 50 mil, I think.
I thought they were only going for one.
1 mil? No, 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 no. Red key cards are very rare.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, they're super expensive, right? So, like, to that extent where it's like stupid overpriced, right? I guess it
Mhm.
makes sense to hoard. Uh, not you know what I mean. Like, it makes sense if you're just saving up for that one item.
But
I'm
he
just
isn't.
yeah. He has. He probably has one. He probably has like a
No,
full
he
derb.
doesn't. He doesn't want one.
Oh, he's
The red
probably
key cards, they don't have durability like some of the other key cards do. They're infinite use. If they weren't infinite use, they wouldn't be 50 mil. Nobody would pay that much for a card that only has 15 to 25 uses if it's, not even all that great of a room, to be completely honest, on a map where 50-50 whether you're going to die to a hacker or not.
yeah. Right. Okay. Well, I think yeah, yeah. So like, kind of leeway and like something you really actually want to talk about. Have you
Hmm.
watched some of the more recent Marvel? Like, this is kind of off topic actually, but like, have you watched any of the recent Marvel movies at all?
It's not very specific, but I think so.
Okay, like Spider-Man, obvious. Let's just
Yeah,
get like
yeah,
okay. So you've seen Far From Home and Homecoming, right?
yeah. I've seen all the Spider-Man
Okay,
movies. I
good, good.
haven't recently seen like one or two, like the old ones. I haven't seen those recently, so I couldn't tell you the plot of them or anything. But the
Oh no, no,
most
no, no.
recent ones,
That's not
like
what I'm talking
I
about.
know those. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I was actually gonna get into. How do you feel about like Tom Holland as a Spider-Man's actor?
I don't know. He's fine. He's not, spectacular. He's not the best actor I've ever seen in the world, but he plays the part well. He fits decently well.
Yeah,
Mm.
like I think the way they integrate him into um like okay, so one thing I think most people who critique movies and or like know what they're talking about say about the
Hmm.
newer Spider-Man is the way they try to force a father figure on Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
What like force Tony Stark as his
Yes, as a father figure.
what would the word be for that? No, there's like okay. Now I have to figure it out. You go ahead.
Like, I can help you. What do you mean, like context?
It's like I couldn't even tell you the syllables or like the first letter or anything, but it's like he acts as the father, but he's not actually the father, and I couldn't tell you the word at all. Like not
A
even vaguely.
stand-in?
I guess yeah, that fits as well as what I think I was thinking of. Like they just kind of force him.
Yeah,
It
like
just mm,
yeah, I think it should have been like if that was their end goal, I think they should have probably built up to it instead of just forcing it off rip, right?
I feel like that if that was their end goal for Spider-Man's proxy father figure to be Tony Stark or whatever, they I feel like I don't know, it's kind of weird that he just like only knew him as Spider-Man. It just doesn't work for some reason. Like it works, but it doesn't.
Until he found out.
Yeah, I feel like not even for like very long, but even like just 10 minutes in the movie, if he didn't know that he was Spider-Man yet, that it would just be a little better. Just a tiny bit better.
Yeah, right. Like at the same time, with me personally, I feel like okay. With I'm just gonna assume anyone who's read or has at least watched Far From Home, this is kind of your point of hey, I'm about to spoil the movie. If you want to watch it, probably should go do it, even though it's been out for like what 2 years, something like that.
Probably, I think.
Anyways, so about to spoil it. So cover your ears, hide your children.
Yeah,
Hide
2
your
years. Far From Home came out in 2019.
Oh, okay, yeah, good. So basically, I think that with it being canon from Tony Stark dying and him getting the what are they called like the glasses, you know what glasses I'm talking about, like the little special glasses he gets.
Oh yeah.
I think
What's the
him.
name? I don't remember.
I think they're like they're not, they weren't Athena. No, it was through Jarvis. So
Yeah, Jarvis.
yeah, so they're Jarvis glasses or whatever. Anyways, probably should look up that name and correct it, but it's fine.
I'm pretty sure it's Jarvis. So.
Yeah. So basically, it's like, how are you supposed to like Tom Holland? Like, I feel like Tom Holland's whole arc of that movie wasn't as much just bam, 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 fight, 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 right? It's been it kind of represented a bit better, and at least in my eyes, the entire struggle of Spider-Man, where it's not as much. It was a bit more. I kind of felt like an undertone was like it went into more of like how he has to really hide his life.
By the way, the glasses are called Edith.
Edith. I thought it was Athena, dude. Oh, okay. Well, that was kind of close. Anyways, um, I feel like if how do I say this? I feel like if you're gonna have a character like Tom Holland, but kind of have him play that like really child role, like not like a child, but as in like he's still developing as his own superhero.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the integration of Tony Stark as like a mentor kind of helps. But honestly, I'd much rather him like distance himself from Tony and just be his own person. Like I think Tony should be there to like save the day every once in a while. But I think at the end of the day, he should just let Spider-Man be Spider-Man until it's like a death situation, right?
Well, let me think. What was the first movie that Tom Holland was Spider-Man in? I think it was Civil War, right?
Civil War, yeah,
Yeah, so he didn't even really have like he never had a movie where it was just Tom Holland
yeah, because the
as
past,
Spider-Man.
yeah, for the past two movies, it wasn't even just Tom Holland. Like the past Spider-Man movies, it was Tony Stark was in it at least once or twice.
Because it was Tom Holland in Civil War for the first time ever, and then Homecoming, Tony Stark was definitely in that, and then Far From Home, he gets the Edith glasses, which are the
Yeah,
most
which
recent Spider-Man movies, and then Civil War, obviously.
yeah, and then there's a new one coming out soon. But I feel like the theme that I'm kind of talking about, like this is just kind of a weird one too. It comes at the tail end of the movie, and that's kind of tail end, kind of mid, like the build up is like his.
Mhm.
You can tell that he kind of struggles to, um, I guess he struggles to find himself and like how to really incorporate his life as Spider-Man because I don't know if you know this, but if you don't, the new actor for MJ, Mary Jane, at least I think. Um,
Zendaya.
yeah, Zendaya. Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was just making sure I got her name right.
Hmm.
Uh, he basically was like kind of incorporated into like a weird stance where like, uh, okay, how to explain this? So basically, in Far From Home, Zendaya figures out he's Spider Man, right?
Right.
So a good scene that was actually improvised by the actors was Tom Holland, Zendaya, and dude, I forget the actor's name. Here, hold on, let me look it up. Uh, let me hold on.
What, like Peter Parker's best friend? I couldn't tell you his name, but I
His
know who you're
name is
talking
okay.
about.
Yeah, so his I just looked it up. His name is Jacob Batalon, Batalon. So his name in the character, his Ned. His name in the character was Ned.
Mm-hmm.
So Ned, or Jacob, I'll just refer to him as Jacob because I don't want to butcher his last name anymore. Um, it kind of shows that like when he improvised that whole scene where he talks, he's like, "Oh, so you're getting ready for the costume party, right?" And then she's like, "I know," and he's like,
Yeah.
you could tell it was like a relief, even though that might have been like kind of improvised. At the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it really shows that like a character who knows this is super in danger and like 100% certainty, because there is a comic, I'll find it in the comics, Spider-Man. So there's a separate timeline where Spider-Man's identity gets found out.
Mm-hmm.
So to get to him, different criminals, I think it was like Kingpin and whoever, basically killed off Mary Jane, killed off Gwen, killed off and critically injured Aunt May.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way that gets fixed is, I believe something happens where like he makes the deal with the devil, he goes back in time. So he had an established life with Mary Jane at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, I think we're gonna have like a kid or something, right? But basically, he gives all that up with her, and like their entire life up to that point. He remembers all of this, by the way. He gives all that up just to save Aunt May,
Mm-hmm.
which, from a comic book perspective, is like how dark that side of Spider-Man really can get. Where that's why it's so important that his I guess identity really stays a secret,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Where, like, for me personally, I kind of like DC more. Uh,
Mm.
I gotta explain this. Like, okay, so my biggest thing is like with Batman is like the fact, like his weird moral code, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or like it kind of shows some inconsistencies. But I think one of the big ones is, uh, okay. So you obviously know his moral code, and I'll have to, if I explain it, I will. But other than that, basically, I think it was either a line in the comics, anime TV show. All this is canon. It was a canon line, and he was talking to Robin,
Mm-hmm.
which was like, I can't kill, because if I do kill, I know I'll go to a place where I'll never be able to come back from.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of shows that when if Batman did that, right, it kind of feels like to me how if, example, Spider-Man did that. If
Yeah.
Spider-Man just said whatever and just started killing off people like he probably could, because he's a superhero, right? He is a literal
Mm-hmm.
superhero. He can just snap a neck if he really wants to, right? Same thing with
I mean,
Superman.
are they really heroes anymore if they're murdering?
And that's exactly right. It's why they're not heroes. They're not holding up justice if they murder, right? And
Mm-hmm.
one of the big, I actually had a conversation with my dad because my dad knows a lot about this. He said to me that the only reason he's refraining to break his code is, one, he has to follow the law, because if he's not, he's gonna be breaking the law, and that's not what he wants to do. And two, if he does kill, he's gonna be just like the person who killed his parents.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big moral dilemma. But I think Spider-Man canon, however you say that phrase. Right? Canon wise, I feel like if he did just decide to say, you know what, I'm gonna start killing. For whatever reason, he thinks it's a good idea just to say, you know, whatever, I'm done with this, I'm gonna start killing. I think that if realistically, um, it would just really, I guess, like, it really makes sense for Spider Man. I'm not saying Tom Holland Spider Man, but I'm just saying that it would make sense, right? Because, in a way, Spider Man's character was built, kind of, you know what I mean? Or, like, it was built around the fact that, how do I say this? It was basically built around the fact that his dad died. I mean, sorry, not his dad. His both of his dads died actually, right? I think that's canon. Like both his parents are dead, and that's why he lives with his aunt and uncle.
Yeah, it was either that his parents are dead or that they, you know, like, I don't know. Yeah, I think they're dead. I think they're dead. But
Yeah,
then, Uncle Ben dies, obviously. That's kind of, what leads him to become Spider-Man, in a way.
yeah. So I guess from that standpoint, if Spider-Man turned to a killer, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be surprised because I think that from just a general perspective, Spider-Man has to deal with if his identity gets out, his whole family dies because that's already been proven to happen. Basically, his whole family dies. And if he doesn't, and he chooses to go on the route of, I'm just going to start killing off these high people and end a story, will he be truly doing good for Uncle Ben? Short answer, no. Long answer, maybe. And that's like that's like a question that I usually think about at least a little bit, almost every day actually. Where I'll just sit there if I'm bored, and I'll just think about it. I'll be like, okay, if XYZ superheroes started killing, they one wouldn't be heroes, but two problems would get solved. If heroes killed out of the purpose of solving crime, fighting crime, or fighting evil, let's just say evil because that's usually how it's described. If they did it strictly to fight crime or evil, and that's the only reason they killed, would they be turning in to what they sought to destroy, or would they be doing good?
I mean, I feel like that's kind of, I don't know. I feel like they kind of have to be, turning into what they don't want. Because, I don't know. Murder is always has been, and I feel like always will be depicted as evil.
Yeah.
Since, you're killing someone. It seems pretty
You're,
obvious
yeah, you're
why.
killing another human being, right? But I feel like to a certain degree, this is not me anyway. I'm just gonna clarify this now. This is not me anyway advocating that murder isn't bad. I'm saying that from a superhero perspective, I think that if you want change to be made and you want crime to stop, I feel like an example where like it'd be fine is like Deadpool. He kills all the time, and you know what? Crime stopped. Like realistically, crime stopped.
I mean,
Now,
technically, Deadpool's not a hero, though, because he's an anti-hero.
yeah, anti-hero, but then again, so is Batman, which is kind of like the reason I think like he could be a killer and it'd kind of be fine. But that's
Hmm.
different, right? But yeah,
True.
yeah. So I think anti-heroes are a good way to like bridge that gap between like intentions are good, but they do it the non-hero way, you know?
Hmm.
Like I'd rather like if I really had to choose and it was like uh uh I guess like if I had to choose between a strict hero who's only by the book and just crime just kind of goes on, I'd literally rather have an anti-hero who just kills, right? Because I just feel like that'd solve the problem. Which
Mm.
that's what I don't understand about Batman's moral code and the Red Hood. Do you know who the Red Hood is?
Uh, both yes and no.
Okay, which part are you confused on? Like I can just explain it if
Like
you're
like
confused.
I could theoretically like I can imagine Red Hood in my head, but I couldn't tell you much about him at all.
Okay, so the Red Hood. This is actually animated, but it's canon, so it's like the animated series. It's a movie. So basically, what happens
Mhm.
is that Jason Todd, version of Robin, at least I think, uh, the Joker captures him, takes him to a warehouse, beats him with a crowbar, that almost kills him, and then blows it up. Batman couldn't get there in time
Mhm.
because I think he was having the same some other people, and he didn't know where Robin was until he kind of died a little bit. He was just before he died, so he couldn't really do anything. So it's canon that so basically like once you die, you can go to hell. If you go to hell, you can fight your way out of hell and be reborn. So that's what
That's
Todd.
such a weird thing to be canon.
Oh yeah, I know it's so weird, but it's canon for some reason. Okay, that's how Red Hood is. Like that's how he came to be, right?
Mhm.
So so when Red Hood came back, there was like the way that the Joker describes it is that there was repressed feelings, repressed hatred, repressed everything because he thought he was doing something good, right? He was so strongly believing that he was doing something good that he didn't think about it. But really, what he did do, and he broke the moral code, is he killed like a good few people. Maybe I think it was like I saw like 7, maybe 20, somewhere in that area. All right,
So quite a few.
quite a few, yeah. And there's also another scene, and that's like near the end, I'm pretty sure. But there's also another scene where he has a conversation with Batman, and they're capturing this dude, and they're talking to each other. And Todd says to Batman, and Batman, I can just tell that he in that moment, at least from a script perspective and from like a visual perspective, he is just destroyed on the inside because one, he didn't let Robin die, but like he couldn't stop it, and I'm sure he felt guilty, but I'm sure it was just amplified by the fact that Robin's response was, "Why can't you kill Joker? Why couldn't you kill him even though he killed me?"
Mm.
And that's where the line, I think at least, comes from Batman, where he says, Todd, or it says Jason. I think it says either one. I think it says Jason. It says Jason. If I go down that low, I'll be a different person and I'll never be able to come back up.
Mhm.
And he goes on to say, like, I'm truly sorry. We need to start over. We, I want to spend a bunch more time with you. And that's what basically happens. But after that, I think it kind of goes later into the movie. I might have my times mixed up. So, Jason Todd, aka Red Hood, has Joker surrounded, like the cops surrounding both of them because he's a criminal. Jason Todd is at least. They have him surrounded with the Joker, and he's talking to the Joker. He has his helmet off. At this point, he has Joker pinned up against the wall. He's about on his last leg, and he's talking to Jason. He's like talking to Jason. So this is where he gets like the repressed feeling, kind of lifted. Like he more fully realizes it is when Joker starts talking to him. He's like, "You're a good killer. you really cut the competition, and it was like it should have seen of like the dude getting cut by glass like in half, right? He's like, you killed all those people, and Jason's like, no, I didn't kill any of those people. He's like, you're repressing it, you're repressing all those feelings, you're repressing all of it, and then it kind of just comes back to him that he actually did all this, and he doesn't kill Joker. At least I don't think he might have, but that's besides the point. Where like he doesn't kill Joker either. And I don't think that's. I think that's a big character flaw in just like Batman in general, where like their moral code's so weird, and it doesn't make sense.
Well, yeah, I could see how that doesn't make sense. I don't know. It's kind of odd.
Yeah.
It really depends how you feel about that kind of thing. That's very subjective whether they're right or not.
Yeah, because you could say that they're right. It's right to kill Joker because of what he's done, but it's also pretty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Because
So,
like, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
hard
also,
to it's hard to explain, I guess.
yeah, I understand. It's like it's also really hard to like truly say who's right and who's wrong, and it's really not who's right, who's wrong. It's more of a morally, how do you feel about that, right?
True.
But besides that, I feel like, I mean, yeah, that's kind of it for that kind of section where it's like, that's kind of what it is to a point. But yeah, so
True.
we can kind of keep going along here. So, is there anything specifically that you can talk about? Like you are besides like Tarkov.
Nope.
I mean, no.
Nope. No, I have nothing to speak on.
What do you mean? We already talked about. I mean, actually, we could talk about Tarkov more if you really want to, because like that's something I actually kind of need to learn.
I don't know. Again, if you really want to.
Yeah, let's do that. Whatever. I was like, I guess that's the most material we got. Until we come up with like more topics. Like I would ask to talk about hockey, but you don't know as much as I do.
No, I don't know much of anything, to be honest.
Besides Tarkov.
I don't really like I don't really like watching sports. I don't think I ever had like in person,
Yeah,
it's
that's
fun,
good.
but like on the TV, no, not at all. It's not engaging or entertaining to me. Like
Yeah, that's how I
really at
feel.
all.
That's how I feel. Anyways, other question actually. Uh, this is just kind of a little one. Are you into history?
I guess yeah.
Which we can talk about. I think it's fine if we talk about like any of like historical war as long as we don't like really get brutal with it. Um,
I mean, I know some about history, just not very much. But like I do at the same time, if that makes any
oh,
sense at
yeah,
all.
that's kind of how I am. Like what war I guess or what period do you know most about like you could confidently talk about?
Yes.
Or is it like spotty?
Yeah, pretty spotty.
Okay, then I guess we'll go for a more broad topic. So, in class, we're talking about World War One,
Hmm.
and we're gonna talk about how it like directly leads into World War Two, or almost directly leads into World War Two, actually.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of sort of the cause, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of like the question I actually had for my history teacher. I'm in honors history too. Not honor history too. I'm saying too as in like as well.
Yeah, the number. Oh, no, the as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense. Yeah, I get it.
we're talking about why, like why did this happen, right? So I said, is it safe to assume that realistically, World War One's ending, I would have liked to say directly caused World War Two.
I mean, like it. I would say it definitely, kind of. What's the best word? It dropped the match, but it didn't like
It didn't fully light up.
it started it, but it's not like it just exploded just because of World War One.
Yeah, no. I think it was more of just a small little ember. But there was, the fuel was there. The kindling, like the fire was there. But the World War One was just that small little ember. But there was also stuff that happened in between the world wars that kind of got it going, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like, without dropping names, because I'm not sure how it's gonna be like TOS. I'm just gonna call him Adolf H. If you know who that is, then great. I'm not gonna say his
If you
last name.
don't, I think you need to learn history.
Yeah. So Adolf H is as I'll refer to him, or AH, whatever I decide, or I'll just kind of talk about it. So AH or Adolf H. Anyways, his, I guess, antics were started because two things. One, or I mean, there's multiple things. If you watch like oversimplified, and you've watched the story of him, like his life, you'll understand
Mhm.
this. But basically, him fighting in the war probably extremely helped with his not very extremely right side nationalist ideas. Okay. Not to mention Mussolini in Germany.
Not to mention what?
Huh?
I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. Not to mention what?
Okay. I said not to mention Mussolini in Italy, who started first.
Okay.
Yeah, fascism, basically.
Yeah.
Basically, my
yeah.
idea is that fascism started it with Italy, right? And Adolf looked up to Mussolini and I want to be like him. I want to lead my country like him. Yeah. So I mean, later down the road, obviously there's a lot of stuff in between details that I could go into, but like, I guess I can. Hold on. I'm just gonna say this because it's kind of weird. Anyways, do you want this to be like we got it? It's already past an hour. You're just gonna kind of want to go till we're done.
I don't really care.
All right, cool. We're just gonna go when we're done then. Don't worry about time. The best way I can explain this is basically World War One, the ending of the Treaty of Versailles, and it was such an unfair treaty because Germany lost a bunch of land. Other countries lose it. Other countries either gained or lost lands, or countries were made, and that's kind of the best way to explain it. It didn't help that the Ottoman Empire also fell, and French lost land, German lost land, Czechoslovakia was made, the Baltic nations were made, so a lot of countries lost land, and I think the UK gained a little bit of land, but I think they might have lost an island or two. Anyways, so Germany was crippled. Okay, they be blank with you. Germany was crippled by World War One. So the Treaty of Versailles crippled the country. The German Reich was terrible. It was basically nothing, and it was terrible, right?
Yeah.
And it really probably fueled AH to like. It really, I think it probably fueled him into a different, unimaginable scale that he was just so angry. And it kind of, I'm not endorsing him at all. I want to preference this. I want to make sure it's clear. I'm not endorsing any of his actions. From a pure history perspective, his issues and his standpoint makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was he was in the trenches, so it wasn't like he's some rich spoiled kid who was just oopie doopie doop whatever. I think this should happen because I don't actually know anything. He was in the trenches of World War One. He was firsthand experience with the food shortages, the mustard gas, do they use mustard gas or they use chlorine gas?
I couldn't tell you.
I think it was one of the two. Right. But I mean, he knew what he was talking about from a world perspective. Like he knew what he was talking about. So I'm sure that really encouraged his countrymen or countrywomen to interact with him. Not to mention the country being in its terrible economic state, and that probably also made it easy to comprehend what he was saying, and him being a strong lead. He was a really good speaker too. So it makes sense. Like all this, it all lined it up perfectly for him. It was an aligning stars. Everything that had to happen happened for him, and that's what happened. And I feel like, too. So I forget what the original Prime Minister of the UK was, or Britain was at the time. But Winston Churchill, originally, he lost that battle at Gallipoli, which killed 500,000 British soldiers during World War One. So that stripped him. He took a big demotion, so he had to work his way back up, which he did, eventually. He worked his way back up. And he became this... He openly voiced his concerns about Germany to the British Congress, not British Congress, for the Prime Minister. He was open about it. He was like, "Hey, Germany is building up their forces again. We got to do something," and they didn't do anything. So when Germany blitzkrieged Poland, took half with Russia. Russia was taking the other half. That was war. That's when it all started, and I feel like. From a European specific perspective, the fact that France fell so fast, and I'm not gonna count Poland because Poland didn't really have a choice because they weren't like a good country. They weren't like a war ready country, because to be honest with you, they were neutral. Like they were just a farming country. So it makes sense that they got taken over so easily. So it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, yeah.
France was just ran over. They were a war-tested country who already went through the First World War, and they just got plowed. And it's like, how do you, as a country, fall to that so easily? I'm not saying it wasn't like a hard thing, but I'm not saying it wasn't also something they could have just about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like them falling so early really screwed Britain over. And it did. It really did, because the British had to endure hold on. I'm trying to think of it. The bombardment of the UK, or Britain, England as in general, they had to endure all that, and it was constant stuff. And thank God for them that the RAF, or the Royal Air Force, was so good against the Luftwaffe. If not, they were fucked. To be honest with you, historically, the Luftwaffe was so good at they were so good at doing what they did good that it was hard to stop them. You know what I mean? Like, they were just units. They could perfectly execute these air maneuvers, which gave them such a strategic advantage over a country like Britain, where they're landlocked, right? They're not landlocked. They're quite the opposite of landlocked. It's available attacks from all corners. And so, if they got a good attack off, they were fucked, right? But the British people just went through it. They were fine. They hunkered down underground in the underground railroad system. not the Underground Railroad like as we know, but like has a metro system.
Mm-hmm.
They hunkered down, and they got through it. And it wasn't in FDR. Really, or it was Eisenhower. FDR didn't want to get involved in the war at all. They wanted to stay out of it, and that made sense to a point. Right. But hold on. Sorry, it's like extremely cold in my room, so I spent a hoodie on. So it was just bad for that country in general. It was just bad, right? But I feel like if the U.S. didn't take the time to prepare the troops, that was a real thing. They took time to actually prepare our military properly, so we were fine. Not to mention, who was attacking us? First and Second World War, we weren't getting bombed. We weren't being attacked. And that's what made our country so good at war. No one ever attacked us directly. The closest attack that got to us directly was the Pearl Harbor, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't even cripple us. Really, that was a small base compared to like literally anything else we had, right? So we were fine, right? So we were just pumping out these weapons. We were pumping out whatever we needed, and it was fine. Other than that, I don't think. I think the Japanese way of being, like their being, was just so brutal. The U.S. had to force them. Like, I feel like people think the U.S. bombed, as it's commonly known, dropped 2 suns on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it's not that easy to explain, because it's such a deeper level than that. It goes as deep as to say that the reason we did do that was because, one, Japan literally trained their high school students to fight. They wanted their kids to die for the country. That was their goal. That was their intention, and nuking was the solution. Nuking them was the only viable option, and it worked. No matter how fucked up it is, it worked. Right? We got them to stop, took them out of the war, and we didn't have to worry about them anymore. Which is such a messed up way to think about it, but it's really the only way to think about it. Because you had to do that to start the end of the war. And that kind of let in. But that's like focusing on the American side and the Japanese and that Pacific War warfare. From a World War II's perspective in Europe, that was just such a mess from the very beginning. Okay, to say that the French folded and surrendered is an understatement. Like, it was bad. I think if France would have done the right thing and not surrendered, but tried to fight as much as they could until the British could to send troops to help, that war would have gone completely different. Because even though the Blitzkrieg was effective, I think they could have done stuff to stop it if they knew it was coming towards Paris, which they did know, at least to a point.
I was gonna say, isn't kind of the whole point of the Blitzkrieg was that they didn't know that it was gonna happen until it was already done, essentially.
Essentially, I mean, but yeah, they could have tried to stop it at least a little bit. Because once you know that, I feel like they did. It wasn't like it took them 30 minutes to go from the top of France to Paris, right?
Well, yeah, of course, of course.
It's like
They aren't magic.
you could have had enough time to put up a somewhat defense, right? Where like, and I don't know the specifics, and I'll have to do some research, but unless their airports were crippled, they should have sent out air support. Just saying. I think they should have deployed as much as they could have, sent out air support, and they should have bombed. They should just bomb the Blitzkrieg because it was mostly a ground assault. And unless those tanks hit you out of the sky, which is pretty unlikely, you're gonna get off those bombing runs, and they're gonna be precise. And I think the reason they didn't is because I think the Luftwaffe assisted them, but I'm not sure. But it was just like they just swept France in like a week or two. So, and that's like the whole reason that the bloodiest invasion happened, aka D-Day. It was just a terrible, terrible, terrible thing that it could have been avoided. And they didn't know this. Obviously, we know this because we're in the future. But it could have been avoided if they just tried whatever they could. Tried whatever they could to delay the Germans. I'm not even saying they had to stop them. I'm just saying delay them enough. Right?
Yeah, I mean, if they knew it was coming and they didn't attempt any sort of counterattack, that was a bad idea, but I don't think they had time. Like I don't think they had time to react. I don't think they knew what was happening until it was,
Like,
already
almost,
done.
yeah.
Until there was already nothing they could do about it.
Which is possible, but I think at the same... Yeah, I mean, yeah. But, I think it's sad that they just basically said, yeah, sorry, we're done. And the only reason I think that France was able to be retaken, to at least a personal perspective, is that what is it? Right. Is the what is it, like Viva la Resistance or something? It's like something resistance, but in French it's that.
Long
French,
live the resistance.
yeah, that's what it was. Viva la Resistance is yeah.
Yeah.
So their resistance, I guess, like really helped because they were French, so they knew French, and a few of them knew German, so they could just go into these government buildings. They couldn't just go into them, obviously, but it was like a little bit more complicated than that. But like they could get into these government buildings. Oh yeah. Or they could at least find out certain things about the government buildings so that they could have a competent area to work in. And they can give...
I want to say it was during World War II. The U.S. dropped so they dropped little pistols called the Liberator, which were like really crude pistols, and they just dropped them. Like they just dropped them out of the air into towns and cities, and they came with little tiny bullets. It was like a single shot pistol, and the whole idea was that you just basically run up to somebody and shoot them. Like, you just you surprise them to try and help. I think it was World War II, so if it was World War II,
my.
to like help remove some of the Nazi presence in whatever towns or cities or such and such.
Okay, this is Wikipedia, so I'm not exactly sure how accurate this is. Ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
FP dash 45 or like whatever that little thing is, Liberator. The FP-45 Liberator is a pistol manufactured by the United States military during World War II for use by the resistant forces in occupied territories. The Liberator was never issued to American or other Allied troops, and there are few documented instances of this weapon being used for its intended purpose, though the intended recipients, irregulars, and resistant firers rarely kept detailed records due to incoherent risk if the records were captured by an enemy. Few FP pistols were distributed as intended, and most were destroyed by Allied forces after the war. So basically, that means what you said. It was a gun to be used by insurgents, whatever, to I guess safely secure weapon, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say this is gonna sound kind of brutal, but the whole point of it was you shot somebody and took their gun.
Oh yeah, probably.
That was like the purpose was that you kill them and take their weapon. Because it's not like it's a single shot pistol. You get one shot. It takes a long time to reload, and it doesn't have a rifled barrel, and it's really short, so the bullet doesn't really go very far, and it's not very accurate. You just get close, you shoot them and take their gun. That was kind of the whole point.
Yeah, and like if you're on Wikipedia, it has like this 12-step reload process.
Yeah, that was dropped. If they were dropped, that is, that was dropped in with the little,
Thing.
weapon.
Weapon. Yeah. So that's That's a terrible gun. To be honest with you, just in general, that's terrible. Dude, guess how much it weighed?
Probably next to nothing.
A pound. It weighed 450 grams.
Yeah, not very much at
It was
all.
a 4-inch barrel.
Yeah, it was not big. I think that, I
Ooh.
mean,
Dude,
kinda
that's an
makes
effective
sense, though.
firing range, dude.
Yeah, 1 to 4 yards or whatever.
8 yards. That's great. That's great firing range. That's really gonna get him. Yeah.
I mean, it was more of like a surprise thing. It's not like you're sniping, 150 meters with it or anything. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, which is, I mean, yeah, I didn't know that, so that's cool. But I mean, and that leads into like the French Revolution being super crucial in the proceedings of like they get information, they fed it to the Allies use that information, which helped, right? But I think it really starts off at D-Day. And I think D-Day is that turning point where like that was, I guess, Normandy. Normandy, D-Day at Normandy, Omaha. I forget the entire names of the beaches, but like one's like Golden Crest or something.
Yeah.
It's it's really a situational thing where the German forces were like, okay, nice. I guess they wanted to. I guess the fact that they pushed during the really, 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 really bad storm probably was just fine, right? Right.
Yeah.
And it just basically was like, yes, surprise attack, ho. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the point.
Yeah.
You want it to be as favorable as possible.
To you.
Yes, correct. I mean, either side would want it to be as favorable as possible to themselves.
Yeah. Which to the Allied forces is that those conditions were perfect. If I'm being honest with you, those were probably perfect conditions because they had to get those conditions in general, and I guess, have them to be able to formally push the beaches without getting mowed down beforehand, even before they got there. But skipping over, if you already know what happens. Basically, if you know anything, if you passed your class for World War II, they get shredded. Most of them get shredded down. Some kind of support, but there is a one weird historical fact from D-Day, and that is the ships couldn't get close enough to provide support and hit the bunkers. The ship's guns wouldn't tilt up enough to hit that far, right? So, I'm not kidding when I say this, and I looked it up, and it's so funny. One ship flooded half the ships would tilt back further so they could shoot farther, and it worked.
Yeah, I mean, if you get if the
Angle.
barrel's tilt is the issue, if you can get the ship to tilt, then yeah, it would work.
And I was like, holy shit. That is so creative and and it probably helped a lot too for storming the beaches. All of them anyways. But that was a joint force of the Americans, Brits, French, Aussies, Canadians, and maybe Indians, like as an Indian, as in like Indian. I think something a big mix of that. But I think after I think that all these global conflicts kind of go into each other, like World War II. Like skipping over that stuff, like skipping over the fact that how hard it must have been to retake over France as a whole. Not to mention like getting Germany pushed back and Russia joining on the Allies near the end. It kind of World War One caused World War II. From a very basic standpoint, World War One caused World War II. World War II, from a basic standpoint, caused the Cold War. The only
Yeah,
reason
I mean, it pretty much did.
Yeah, but like the one thing I felt so weird about thinking today is I was looking at the Berlin Wall, like looking at the Cold War, and my dad was born in 1974. The wall came down in 1989. So to think that my dad was 75, 5 years old, and then 74, 5, then the year he's 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. He's like 15. And he would have seen the Berlin Wall fall on TV. The Berlin Wall fall on TV. And not to mention 9/11. He would have saw that too. But it's like so... It's so weird to think about that it went so long. Like, if you want to truly think about it, we're still in a quote-quote global conflict right now with Iran and Iraq and the Middle East in general. And I feel like one war has caused the next, right? So the communist quote-quote country of Russia now, which isn't technically communist, but it still holds a lot of the ideals, has... I think it's a little bit of Iran or Iraq or whatever, like under control, where they support one side, and that's kind of beside the point. But it doesn't help that the U.S. has such a need to spread democracy. That's bad. And it really kills. It helps Iran because they're developing as a country, and Iraq and Afghanistan because they're developing as countries, and they're slowly furthering themselves from these oppressive governments that they have government.
Yeah.
and it really helps, right?
Yeah.
But and
And question mark.
I'm trying to cohere in a sentence that makes sense to me. Mm, okay, here's what I'll say. It makes sense that the U.S. wants to push democracy. It makes sense that Russia kind of wants to push their ideals, right? They both want to. But what I don't understand initially is why. Like, I feel like everything started with World War One, really, and I don't think we've really ever been out of a conflict, at least till recent. Like, if you've noticed that, like, history's gonna repeat itself soon, and I'm really kind of waiting for that. Like, I feel like I'm not even gonna be like over exaggerate. I'm not gonna be like I'm not going to say anything that's gonna be like negative. I'm just gonna say this. Just keep it as broad as general. Our
Mm.
current presidency, with that little stunt they pulled in Syria, they could cause a serious war if we do not do something about it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, wars can be caused surprisingly easily. Kinda freaky when you think
Yeah.
about it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like for example, the entirety of my issue with our current presidency, we live in the U.S., is that they don't run the country. They're kind of not doing it right, but like they're going to cause an international crisis with Russia or China, and it's going to be super hard to deal with that because to a certain degree, I feel like if the U.S. doesn't take care of what it is now, a, a big conflict will start out with Russia, and then we'll be fucked, right?
Mm.
And okay, and it's gonna end up that either our current presidency causes the war, or there's another war in the there's another European war, and we get dragged into it. And I'm starting to believe that Germany might be at the center of it. And it's because in recent news, Germany has been bulking up their supplies. They've been bulking up their army. And I think at least they've been trying to build better relations with Russia. And it's and other countries too, right? And I'm starting to
Yeah.
get really concerned because if history repeats itself, they're gonna try again. And I don't want that to happen because I know how bad it's gonna be at least this time around. Now, if that's going down and Russia joins, I don't think people understand how technologically advanced this war will be. I think at the very
Quite.
yeah, like I think at the very beginning, I think they're going to straight up be like, okay, we get it, it's war, but no nuclear weapons of any kind. Power plants are fine, but just no nuclear weapons because that's going to do more damage to literally ourselves and everyone else around us that we can't comprehend yet, at least.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
So it makes sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, nuclear war would be very bad. Yes, correct.
Yeah. Like it'd kill.
Crazy, right? What a
Yes.
wacky thought.
Yeah, it'd kill anything and everything around you. Right.
Hmm.
So yeah, it just like really puts into perspective realistically how fast a war could start.
Very.
Yeah. Like I guess fast is like what, 10 years, 5 years, something like that. I guess that's a fast time to start a war.
Depends what it's starting over, I suppose.
Yeah. But I guess like if a war starts, I'd hope to God that Russia and us stay out of it. Because if we don't,
Yeah.
the the country will both countries will collapse. Because one, we're probably gonna nuke the shit out of whatever country. And this is under the assumption that nuclear warfare is allowed. Which I'm not saying it probably won't be. Right? We nuke the shit out of whatever country first. I'd say in a wartime situation, in all seriousness, I think we cripple we'd probably cripple Russia. I think if that was our plan to not fucking kill the entire world, I think our plan would be to cripple Russia first, just off rip, right? Because that's like probably the safest way to guarantee that the war won't get really out of hand really fast. Now, as fucked up as it may seem, it's true that if we cripple Russia off rip, it'll be a much safer war than it would be a much more destructive war. Because I think if we did cripple Russia just off the bat, the U.S. would just be like, okay, well, that's all we came to do. Bye. And they just send supplies after that.
Yeah, I mean, you never know, though, with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. War's weird.
War is weird, to be honest with you. That's why it's
You
kind
never
of.
know what's gonna happen.
Oh, yeah. That's why I think
Absolutely
it's so interesting.
wacky.
Yeah. But, you know what? I think that's a good place to stop. We've been dragging it almost out
Yeah,
forever.
absolutely wacky, right? War's
Yeah.
weird. Who would have
So,
thunk it?
we're getting up to that 1 hour and 35 minute mark. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Long boy.
Yeah. So, I want to thank you guys all for watching. I really do appreciate it. I mean,
Yeah,
not
those
watching, listening.
non-existent people, you know?
Oh, yeah, right. Not watching, but
Bogey.
listening. Yeah. But I do really appreciate it, and this should probably will be more sure to come. I think we're probably gonna get a schedule of probably every weekend at probably like today, whenever this comes out. But we'll probably like record Saturday or something, whenever we have time. So yeah, thank you guys all, and have a good rest of your day, evening, or morning.